Good morning, folks. This is Shelly Hayes. I am so excited to share the coming time with you to talk about the 2016 application for membership with community health charities. As we get started, just want to go over a little bit of housekeeping. There's a couple of things we want to touch base on. If you do have questions on today's webinar as we go through, simply use the questions box in your dashboard. Look like many of you sent us some feedback on the quality of sound, so it looks like everybody knows how to use that. So feel free to submit those, and we'll do our best to get all of those questions answered. We do have over 200 people signed up for today's webinar, and they're continuing to come in. So if we don't get to your question today, we will certainly follow up with you via email, but please send all of your questions in and we'll tackle them as they come in and as we go through today's webinar. Just also to let you know that today's webinar, once we are completed, will be posted on the healthcharities.org/member-resources page. If you haven't checked this link out, you'll want to make sure to do that to have a lot of tools at your fingertips, including tutorials and other pieces of information. So feel free to check that out at your convenience as well. But after today's session, we will be posting today's recording as well. So let's just jump right in. We want to make sure that you have all the ways to stay connected to us here. Many of you have been with us in the past, and that's awesome. And you're familiar with who your manager is across the country. We do have 8 managers assigned to this team that will work with you very closely. And if you're unfamiliar with who it is, we can get you connected. But there's always a great way to stay connected, and that is our member connection at healthcharities.org email. Feel free to email us at any time at this email address, and we'll get you connected to whomever or whatever you need and answer your questions. The second way to stay connected is the member connection updates. These are updates that we send on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern right to your inbox. And there's lots of great information on the application, coming applications in the spring. That's how we communicate with you about all of those pieces. We try to keep it short and direct to the point. And so we really want to make sure that you are receiving those and you're staying connected through that tool. If for some chance you're not receiving those, you can email us at memberconnection@healthcharities.org, and we'll get you connected and get your email address added to that distribution list. And I just mentioned to you the healthcharities.org / member resources. So I wanted to point out, once you come here, you can see this is where we have the registration for today's webinar. We have an overview of the timeline for this year, as well as all of these great tutorials. And I just wanted to take a minute to pause and point these out to you, because today as we go through, this is an overview, but I wanted to make you aware of these tutorials available to you on the member resources page, because you may want to refer back to them, as I'm not going to go in depth into each one of these attachment A's or membership appointment agreement as these individual ones. These are quick videos. The longest is attachment A at 7 minutes, and the rest run less than 5. So definitely check those out as well. And this is where we will, again, post today's recording for your future reference. I also wanted to point out on the member resource page, this is where you will go to find any state and local campaigns that we refer to in the member connection update on Tuesday. Many of you had asked for an overview last year, which we can say that we were able to put together as our team has gone through this year. So now we have last year's information. Make sure to remember this is last year's, but that can give you an overview to help you plan as you go through. You know, you can definitely use this as a resource tool for you anytime, and make sure that you know what's here. You'll also see what's there for 2016. So when you receive the member connection update on Tuesdays, it'll direct you to this page to check out all of those pieces. So that's terrific. All right, so let's continue to move through. This is just a map of the territories, and you can see they're not lined up in nice, simple pieces. Our team is set up in a way so that we can, best utilize our skills and abilities. But I just wanted to give you an overview just to see that it's not necessarily a connected way to go down that way. So, all right. So when you were ready to begin the online application, there's a couple of things that we want to talk about before you get started. So the first is you need your login credentials. Now, if you were the primary contact from last year and you did the online application, your credentials remain the same. If you can't remember your credentials, simply click the Forgot Password and you'll be able to receive an email with that information. Again, if you are new to the organization or we're not responsible for the application, simply email memberconnection@healthcharities.org and you will be able to request that. Also, wanted to point out that when you're looking at the member resources page, you can have multiple people from your organization have access to that. So multiple logins give you access to that page. However, when it is time to start your application, there will be one login available to access the application. So you're welcome to ask for a generic email that multiple people can share, but we did want you to know there is one login per application as a primary contact. All right, this again, you can find this on the website, but I wanted to let you know the timeline. So we're kicking off next week. The online application will be available for the nationwide members, and then October will be for the local members. So you can get into the online application and get working on this. Now, if you're a local member on the call today, we'll go through what you should start working on in September as well. So there's lots that we can go ahead and get started on both sides of the board. The board will meet in December, so we need to have everything accounted for, and ready to go for that board meeting. So you may ask, well, why is the application deadline due so early if you don't meet until December? But we have over 2,000 applications that we processed last year, and we want to do a good job at processing them this year. And so we're going to use the month of November to do any catch up, anything that we need to go back and forth with you to make sure, because we do not want to present anything to the board that would not be aligned with the requirements and ready to go. So we're not going to present anything that we would be concerned that would come back to us. So this is an overview of the timeline. I did want to also mention that it is not until generally May of next year that we'll find out approvals from the specific campaigns, whether they're the combined federal campaign or some of the state campaigns that are submitted, this fall and early spring. So there is quite a lag time. So wanted just to make sure that you knew you'll receive, and we'll go over this in a little bit, but there is this process that we'll do this fall. We'll get everything submitted by the deadlines, but we will not learn approvals from the actual campaigns until next spring. All right, so in September, and this today's webinar was originally geared for just those charities that operate unique to their market. And so we want you to go ahead and get started on your attachment A. We know the attachment A generally is, the biggest stickler in the online application. And so we want you to go ahead and get started so that there's no questions when it's time for you to get that uploaded. We have provided a template on both the application as well as the member resources page. So you can go ahead and take a look at that. There's also that tutorial we mentioned. A couple quick notes on the attachment A. We want to make sure that you do include that human health and welfare statement. If you're providing services, we want to make sure that they really see that. I won't go in depth to it now. You can check out that attachment A video and make sure you use those templates, and we should be good to go. So for local charities, just provide your 2015 activities. One thing to keep in mind is that we're asking you to submit your application by October 30th. And sometimes people say, well, the end of 2015 is not done. To meet the requirements for the combined federal campaign for this attachment A, you can provide services up through September 30th. You could provide services, if they meet the requirements that you did in, let's say, March or June or a 6-month period. You do not have to report all the way through the end of the year. Just a side note for those of you who I do see we have a few nationals on the call, you have 3 years that you can provide services for. The next thing that's really important for your attachment A is that physical address. So this was the first year that we saw OPM doing a lot of checks on that physical address. So you really need to make sure that you have the correct address, because again, this year we will only be able to put you in those combined federal campaigns where you have a physical address. So no longer statewide and adjacent. That left last year and that has not come back. So we want to make sure that both your attachment A document as well as your CFC applications have that, service address or that physical address. So as we continue on, step 2 for you locals, October 1 is when you would begin your online application. You would go to healthcharities.org/application. We'll send the link to this in the member connection update, so you don't have to remember that right now. So there's going to be a number of different steps, and we'll walk through each one of these, including giving us your contact information all the way through the attachments A, B, C, and D. All right, so once you get logged in, you're going to come to the main page. And when you get to the main page, it's going to give you some details. 1, deadline, remember, October 31. We have got to get everything in so that we can meet all of the deadlines that have been put forward to us this year. So please go ahead and get started collecting all your documentation, working on your attachment A. We really want to get everything done no later than October 31. Once you've completed, as we walk through today, you'll see there's going to be a place for you after you've completed to submit your application for review. So once you see log in, you'll see this opportunity to have outlined all of the different steps. We ask that you can check them out, but as you go through, you'll notice if you do not complete the step, either fill out the form or upload a document, the boxes will not be checked to the left. So you're going to want to make sure that you've filled out all of the required boxes, uploaded all the appropriate forms, and then the system will check off the box that's appropriate for you. I did want to touch on the application fee. We did put out in the member connection update that for 2016 there would be an application fee. However, the Office of Personnel Management, the Office of the Combined Federal Campaign, did not push forward to do all of the final rule changes that did include a fee for this year. They've pushed that back a year. So for local members, there will be no fee. However, just because we do have some nationwide members, I do want to make sure that fee will be the same that it has been for all of the last 5 years. All right. Once you finish that step, which there is no step, so that's that's a freebie. You can feel good that that box will be checked immediately. You would click the next button. I did want to point out there's the main page that would take you back. So there's no back button. You would simply click main page to go back to the main menu, but next would take you to the next step. The next step is the contact information. So this is going to be the contact information for your organization as well as the people in your organization. The official representative, that would be the person who's doing the application, and any alternate and otherwise. If it's the same person in your organization who's the CEO, the primary, the finance, you would just simply check the checkbox and it'll copy it over for you. Also, we have a place for you to tell us. We're excited about our Health Matters at Work and our Volunteer 365 programs. So there's also a place in there for you to provide information to us on who we should contact for those pieces as well. As we continue through, the next step would be the membership application and appointment. So whatever information you've entered in the contact step will pre-populate this form. Once you get this form, it'll pop up. The formatting looks a little interesting on screen because it's set to print in a paper format, but we want you to go through and do all of the checks and then you would sign. Now, I do want to remind you there's a complete tutorial on the membership appointment on the member resource page. But a couple of things to point out, these are the same standards that we've used since 2012. And even before, there was just one amendment back, or a couple of amendments back in 2012. So these membership standards have remained the same. They're what you signed off on last year. However, last year we just asked that you signed off and said, we meet all of these. This year, we've broken them all down into 21 different certifications. You can request a waiver on some of those for 2016, but we do want you to make sure that for 2017, you do comply with each one of those certifications. There are also some templates attached to the document. So if your organization does not have some of those pieces, and they really do align with what you reported in your 990, there's some templates back there. So really the document, when you print it out, looks like a lot of pages, but there's the place for waivers and there's the place for the templates. So if you don't have any waiver requests or templates that are needed, really it's just a couple page document to go through, certify, and submit back. All right, the next step in order is the charity profile. So this is where you provide this overview information to us that we then can use in the marketing materials with the campaigns, as well as here internally. So a couple of things to know. You will need your CFC code. Now, if you used the online system last year, that should carry over. But if you did not, you can we have a link here so you can look up your code, or you can email us and request that code as well. Also on here, I wanted to mention that it is a 25-word statement. We were moving to a 256 character, but because OPM has elected to wait an additional year, they have changed it back to 25-word statement. So if you use the online application, your 25-word statement from last year is still there. So you can, edit it, revisit it, or you can simply submit what you had from last year as well. Also, this is where you'll calculate your AFR, your overhead, and the instructions were back on the top of the page there, but we can help you with that as well. All right, as we continue through, we get to the next step, which is those marketing materials. These are the materials including your logos, your stories of caring, what a pledge buys. You'd be surprised how many campaigns, both private and public, ask us for this information. So we want to make sure that you submit all of this to us. Again, if you've used this in the past, a lot of that should carry over. For those first-time users, you'll want to make sure to get, your logos and everything uploaded to us. All right, the next step is the CFC application. And this is the application that we submit for the combined federal campaign. It will pre-populate for you with the information that was entered, but all of the fields should also be editable if you do need to edit anything as you go through. So again, the certifications for strictly the combined federal campaign are outlined here. I did want to point out on certification 1, this is where you enter your service address for those local charities. This is the service address where you have the physical location, and it must match what you enter on your attachment A. You'll also put your hours of operation as well as the organization's dedicated number. This has not changed since last year, but we just wanted to point it out to make sure that you know to have this match your attachment A submission. Also, I wanted to point out on certification 7, the AFR, or your overhead percentage, will fill out from what you enter in your charity profile. So you want to make sure you do your charity profile step, get your AFR calculation before you do this form so that it will pre-populate for you. Then when you get to the end of it, you'll simply sign it, and after you've checked all your boxes, filled out your address, you'll print it, and then you'll be able to sign it to upload back to us. There are several certifications that have multiple options in this form. So you'll make sure on those questions that have ORs, you only check one of those boxes. All right, then we have the attachment A. And in the attachment A step, there's a lot of different pieces here that I want to point out. The first being the tutorial. So if you don't get to the member resources page, or there's somebody else in your organization who's doing the actual application, we have linked the tutorial here as well. We've also put a template both for nationwide charities and local charities, and the login will recognize you to know which one to provide to you. So you'll have your template right there as well. Again, you can go ahead and get those from the member resource page now if you would like to do that. After you've got that all filled out and completed, you would simply do a browse, and then you would upload it to us and then hit next. So that's a quick and easy upload that you would do with your original document. All right, the next step, everyone's familiar with the IRS determination letter. So this is also, we have a quick tip here. And if you're a single or you're an organization that you are standalone, which many of the locals you obviously are, you would just need to provide us your IRS letter. There used to be a requirement. They would try to get, newer ones. It can be an older version. It does not have to be an updated version. It can be, dated some time ago, but you want to make sure that you're still in good standing, because that is a process that the government will do to make sure, as well as those private campaigns, to make sure that you are eligible to participate in the campaigns. And just because we have a few nationals on, I just want to point out, for those of you who do need to provide us a CEO letter with a list of your bona fide chapters, we have put in here a reminder that that CEO letter must be dated after October 1st. And we've also given you a template this year to complete for your bona fide chapters. Again, you would do the same thing. You would do your browse, choose your file, and upload that to us. The next thing I want to talk about is attachment C, which is your audit. So one thing we ran into last year was that we were receiving a number of emails that were, a number of audits that were secured. And then we'd have issues coming back and not being able to print them or submit them in some online applications that required us to upload and submit those electronically. So make sure what you upload to us is in an unsecured format. And that way we will be able to use those. Again, you'll simply do your browse and upload that to us. There's some more instructions here, but none of that has changed from previous years. We do need gas and gap standards, and all of those other pieces do apply. Also, we have the last step in the process in the online application is your 990. And so there's a couple of things also here I want to point out. Must be unsecured. You do have your quick tip tutorial, but also I want to make sure for both the audit and the 990, you remember that what you submit to us, they have to be from the same fiscal year, and they have to be from June 30th, 2014 or later. So again, audit 990, what you submit to us must be matching, and they must be from June 30th, 2014 or later. Again, just like the audit, make sure that you're submitting to us an unsecured version. Now, some of you guys, your organization submits your 990s to the IRS via electronic submission. So you don't always have an officer's signature on page 1. If you do not have the officer's signature on page 1, we need you to provide to us what they call Form 8879, which is a signed copy of the e-file giving your organization authority to submit electronically. So keep in mind that that page 1 must be signed. We cannot accept it if it's not. But if it is not already signed by an officer, check with your finance department or whoever manages those 990s. They may have a signed Form 8879, and that's totally fine to submit with your application. No big deal there. So we did put an extra step in this. After you browse and you upload it to us, we want to make sure that you have checked that that's signed so it doesn't slow your organization down from being approved. All right, so we've walked through all of the online application, those simple steps of filling out the forms or doing uploads. Once you get to the end, after you hit next, you will receive you'll see a button that says submit application for review. You would submit that and you will receive an auto-generated email confirmation that says basically it's been submitted and submitted to your manager for a review. Once your manager has a chance to review it, now if you get it in earlier, you should get a response a little bit sooner. When we're working on 2,000 applications and everyone chooses to do them on October 25th, it may take us a little bit more time to get to you, but you will receive an email from your manager either asking for additional information, something that wasn't checked or signed, or you will receive an approval email. So you'll get the auto-generated email just to tell you and give you confirmation that your application was submitted to the tool. And then once the manager has a chance to review it, they'll either send you an email that tells you what they're missing or what they need clarification on, or they'll send you that approval. Once we submit all the members to the board for approval in December, we will make an announcement in the member connection update, just confirming that you were approved. Again, I do not want to take any charities to the board that there are questions, so I don't foresee any issues there, but we will contact you independently if there were any type of issues that we needed to follow up on. And then in the spring, we'll do all the campaign submissions and receive the approvals and communicate those back to you. Well, I've come to the end of my slides and we'll get ready to take all of your questions, but I wanted to remind you of a couple of things. Remember, you can contact us through Member Connection at healthcharities.org. Today's presentation and all of the tutorials that I referred to are on the healthcharities.org/member-resource page, as well as making sure that you stay connected through the Member Connection updates. So I'm having a little trouble with our question tool. So bear with me and let me pull that up and we'll see what questions that have come in. Yes, I did see that typo that I need to correct for this afternoon. All right, it looks like there were some folks that had some initial issues with hearing. I'm sorry if you haven't been able to connect back to that, but we will be posting today's recording. Although if I'm saying this, you probably can't hear it if you couldn't hear first. But it looks like the majority of people had no problems. All right, how do I know if I'm a local or a member, if I'm a local or a nationwide member? If you're an organization that has a reach of the entire country, and for purposes when I say nationwide, you do services in 15 or more states across the country. So our groups that are nationwide members and then have chapters or affiliates across the country, their headquarters would be the nationwide member, and then the chapters would be the locals. Then we have those charities that are unique and do services right there in a given area. So if your charity's scope or your mission is to serve people in your community right there, then you're considered a local member. As we move forward through our consolidation, we're going to get to the point where everyone is just members and we don't have the distinction between. But as we continue to have our transition years, we still kind of refer to it that way. The online application will recognize you based on your status of who you are. So it'll give you the right templates and the right tutorials based on your membership type. All right. Yes, the slide deck will be posted and sent out in Member Connection update, so no problem there. We've talked about the difference between the local and nationwide. So there was a question about will we know the amount we will receive in 2016 by the end of December? If you could send in a clarifying question on that, I'm not sure I actually understand what that question is. The next one, the physical address, can that be a service address such as a program site, or does it have to be an administrative office? That's a terrific question. It can be a service site. That is totally fine for that to be included. All right, the next question Oh, looks like we have a lot of those, so we'll make though we've answered that question. All right, attachment A, physical address. Does that include the program site address or just the headquarters? Should there be a separate attachment A for each physical address? That's a great question. Yes, if you have multiple service addresses, you can go into multiple campaigns as long as they're different campaigns. So for instance, if you have a site in a state with a physical address, we will put you in that campaign. If there's a neighboring campaign, different campaign, and you have a service address there, we would need a separate attachment A and a separate CFC application with that service address and the services specific, excuse me, sorry, specific to that address. So yes, we would need attachment A for each one of those service addresses. Okay, let me get to the questions. All right, the next question is, does the application auto-populate to this year's app? That is our goal, that the things that you entered from last year should populate. We're still working on a couple of pieces of that, but yes, the information. Now, if it was specific to last year's application, let's say your attachment A, your audit, your 990, that will not pre-populate because we need updated documents there. So totally fine to manage it that way. There's a question that says, can we get the templates in Word format? We've actually created them in fillable PDFs, so you should be able to treat them just like a Word document. They are fillable PDFs. If you do have some issue with that, contact Member Connection and we'll be able to connect with you that way. Continuing to look at the questions. Okay, it looks like there's some very specific questions about, how do you fill out your attachment A if you're a chapter of a national. Contact us directly or we'll follow up with you based on this question. I'll send out these questions to your appropriate manager and they'll follow up with you directly on that specific question. One of the questions is, what is the time frame once organizations have been approved? So basically the timeline for these workplace giving campaigns is fairly long. We are now preparing to apply for 2016. Remember, we'll get those approvals for the 2016 campaign that we're filling out now in around May or June of next year. Then the solicitation period happens for the CFC and many of the other campaigns, September 1 through the end of the year. So you're actually filling out the application right now for 2016, and you're also going to be receiving events or marketing opportunities to promote yourself in the 2015 campaign. So it is quite a long cycle, from application to approvals to solicitation to when the money starts flowing to you as well. It's a great question. Okay, I see another very specific question about approval from last year and IRS. We'll make sure that your manager follows up with you on that question as well. Let's see. I'm currently independent organization, but we anticipate being part of our national organization. Our service area will remain the same. I'll continue to fill out the local. That's correct. You would still fill out your local. Let's see. How do you reflect? The question on, we'll send that to our finance department to answer how you fill out your 990. That's probably very specific. So if your 990 is not going to be ready by October 31st for locals and by September 30th for nationals, we need to have a conversation with you independently and talk about what needs to happen to get that collected. So I will send this question that was submitted to your manager to talk to you as well. Okay, so the next question is about the audit. If your revenue is less than $250,000, is it no audit needed? That is for the combined federal campaign, and that rule will be changing with them in the coming year. What we're requiring for this year is that when you do your certifications, it will ask you if you do an audit. If you do not do an audit because your revenue is low, you can ask for a waiver. But remember, by 2017, we will want everyone to comply with having the full audit, even if your revenue is low or below 250,000. Again, there's another question about last year's information being pre-populated. Most of it will be able to be pre-populated. There'll be some places that will ask you to re-enter it. Yes, the healthcharities.org/member resources will be the place that you can view today's webinar. We have another one this afternoon, so we'll post whichever one is the clearest and the cleanest. And so you should be able to look for it early next week for it to be posted. So your 990 must be dated June 30th, 2014 or later. So if your fiscal year ends December 31, 2014, that is absolutely an acceptable 990 and audit to submit. So anything after June 30th for your financials is acceptable. So it could be, you know, fiscal year in June 30th, a fiscal year in September, December. Even we have some that do February of 2015. That's no problem. So for those who are asking national questions, we'll have your manager follow up with you as well regarding that CEO letter dated. So if you do have a new staff person who is in charge of the application this year, and they, for whatever reason, do not have access to last year's files, a lot of the information obviously will be pre-populated from last year, but we do have a copy. You can simply ask your manager to send you what was submitted last year, and we're happy to submit that to you. We do have a copy of that. Let's see. If I need information on helping or additional information on attachment A, even after I watch the tutorial, where do I receive that? You can email us at member connection and we'll get you connected to your manager. So they're geared up and ready to go to help you with that. And that's why we encourage those charities to go ahead and get it started in September. It's going to be a lot easier for you to start now, connect with them, go back and forth, make sure that it's correct so that when you are going to upload it, if you have all of that ready, when you go to do the uploads and the completion, this shouldn't take you more than, you know, a few minutes. So we want to help you do the prep work now here in September so that you're ready to go and the actual process of submitting isn't tough. Another question is, are we submitting an application every year? Yes, we do require an application every year. We do require the signed membership appointment, and all of the campaigns require updated financials. So yes, this is an annual application that you will continue to do each year that you want to participate. All right, so there was a question about the appeal process and our role in the appeal process. So with the combined federal campaign or any state campaigns, municipal campaigns, if we submit your application and there is a denial, we'll walk through that denial process with you. Our goal this year and last year is that we have everything ready to go for the board and then for the submissions so that we don't have denials. Our goal is to not have denials in the spring. But if for whatever reason there is, and oftentimes that does come from the attachment A, we've tried to build in systems this year, making sure that that 990 signed and having you make sure to verify that. We're trying to build some tools into the system so that things that are commonly cause denials will be reduced. And oftentimes it is that attachment A. So that's why we're really encouraging you now to get connected to the tutorial, the template, your manager, so that we can reduce that. But if by chance there is a denial, your manager will work with you and they will write the appeal for you. They'll collect additional information and get that submitted. Now, we did have some denials this year on service addresses not being actual addresses. Let's say it was a UPS store or FedEx store. Right now, even though many companies and many organizations are moving to, having service sites but not an actual address for the organization, they are kicking those back out. Remember, these regulations were written back in the 60s, and actually it takes an act of Congress to change those regulations. And so even though we don't care for them, we think they're a bit outdated, it is what it is right now, and we have no grounds to appeal on a service or on an address that is not a service address or your organization's physical address. How do I receive a login? You do not have to get it through your national office. You can simply email us at Member Connection and we'll get that set up for you. All right, there's another national question that we'll take off table since we're mainly working for or focusing on the locals today. I don't see any save button. What should I do if I'm working at home on the application and I need to continue working on it the next day? That's a great question. Basically, when you enter information, it will save it for you. When you hit that next button, what you enter will save. So we don't actually have a save button, but the system is automatically saving what you enter. So if you do, let's say, that application fee, automatic checks off, you do the contact information, you hit next, or you hit main page. Either one, it's going to save what you entered. So you can come back the next day and pick up on the next step where you left off. All right, there's a question on what address should we use for an organization that's totally volunteer and local in the community. We'll have your manager work with you on that when you're completing your attachment A. That's a great question, and if you have site addresses that you work from, we can help you navigate that. So we'll connect with you on that specifically when you're working on your attachment A. If if you have specific questions on your eligibility or last year's participation, certainly feel free to email us at Member Connection and we can address that question with you. All right, another question from a national about attachment A. We do not need 3 years of data, but you can use 3 years of data in your attachment A. So for local members, you can only provide, or you only are allowed to provide the current year. If you're national, you can go back 3 years, but you are not required to. Looks like there's some more questions very specific to service addresses in the attachment A. We'll get those sent out again to we'll get you connected or send them to Member Connection. We'll get your manager to follow up with you because those seem very specific to your area. Okay, the question was, can the membership application appointment that have the templates be sent out in Word so that you could use them and fill them. Absolutely, we can. I'm not actually sure what we have on file. I'll send your question to Member Connection and we'll see what we have on file and get that sent over to you. The question was, what format is acceptable for uploading attachments? That's a great question. You can submit a .pdf or a .doc. Both will work. So either one will work on your uploads. Okay, there was a question, if your 990 is not complete by the deadline, will the Form 8879 suffice? No. The Form 8879 is just a signed form by an officer in your organization saying that you have submitted your IRS Form 990 electronically. So they do not go in lieu of. The Form 8879 is in lieu of a signature on page 1 of the actual 990. So that 990 must be signed by an officer. If you do not have a copy that is signed, we cannot accept it. We need that 990 signed. And so if it's not signed, you could go back. Oftentimes when they're not signed, it's because they filed it electronically and they would have that form, that signed Form 8879. So it's not in replace of, it's just in replace of that signature on page 1. Oh, someone asked, I just went to the member resources page to try to print this presentation. We have actually not uploaded it yet. Once we get today's recording done, we will post both of those. They should be there, this afternoon or early next week. We'll put them. We'll also send them out in the Member Connection update on Tuesday. But we just wanted to get through the sessions and make sure we didn't have any changes, like my typo, before we get those posted. But you should be able to get those. We should be able to actually put the PowerPoint up this afternoon. That's no problem. Is a 990 an audit for calendar year 2014? Okay, absolutely, because that would be fiscal year ending 12/31/14. So that totally fits into the parameters of the date requirements. What is the best way to get an overview of the annual results from our local participation? You can email finances@healthcharities.org and they can get you any of those reports. They should be sent to you directly, but if you haven't received those, they can help get those reports to you. Again, that's finances@healthcharities.org. Actually, it's finance, not finances@healthcharities.org. So if you are a multi-state charity, if you're part of a national, if you're a chapter or an affiliate of a national, you've been assigned a manager for your entire organization. So for the headquarters, for all of the affiliates, whether they're in Florida or California. So if you're a chapter or affiliate of a national, you'll have a manager assigned to your entire organization. If you're a charity that is unique to a particular market, then you would fit into that state. If you have a service address in 2 different states, but those are the only 2, I don't think we had any that way, but we'll work with you to just work with one manager. That's no problem. Absolutely, more than one person at an organization can receive member connection updates. Please email memberconnection@healthcharities.org and we can get whomever you need to be signed up. That's no problem. Let's see. October 31st is a Saturday, and actually I think I was supposed to say October 30th. We don't want you to wait till then anyways, but you could, if you cannot get it in by the 30th, we want you to do it. We want you to have it in. If you need special provisions, we'd ask you to talk to us now to see how we can help you get it in by the deadline, if there's anything that we can do on our end. But please talk to your manager about that. So the question is, when will we be approved or denied? When will we be notified? So just for membership purposes, you will receive in depending on when you submit it in the time and busyness, you should receive notification that you have some things to clear up with us, some questions that we have, or the approval within a couple of weeks of your submission. So we take those in order as they come in. So if everybody waits till October 25th, it might take us a couple weeks to get to yours as the order they were submitted. If you submit sooner, and the volume isn't as high, you should hear in a much quicker fashion. So you'll hear from us within a couple of weeks of your submission if there were issues or if you were approved from your manager. Then we'll take you to the next step. You'll hear from us through Member Connection Update that you were approved by the board. If for some reason there was an issue, which I'm not going to, I'm going to work everything out before I get that far, we would contact you independently directly about that. But remember, then we do the submissions. So it is not until spring of next year that we would get the approval from either the CFC or the approval from the state campaigns. We're still receiving approvals from some of those campaigns. So it really is not until spring that we would hear back from the actual campaigns on approvals. There's a question that says, so if your organization moves to a virtual address model in the future, participation will not be an option. That would be, that's a great question. And we can work with you. There's some, some leeway that we've learned of some opportunities that we can present your attachment A. So I encourage you to start now, and we can work with you on how that should be submitted. But we would still need some type of address on the application. So, but there's we've learned some from training from some options to how to present web services and pieces like that. So there was a question about, I thought this was a national webinar. Your manager should have reached out to you or someone in your organization. I'm sorry if that did not happen last week. We can get with them. They can walk through the presentation directed to nationals with you at any time. So we'll get you connected to your manager if you did not have that call last week. So there was a question about the saving of an application and going back. So once you log into your application and you start going through each of the steps, the system is going to save your work as you go along. So whether you hit main page and go back to the main navigation page, or you hit next and go to the next step, your work will be saved. So you could come in, take a look at the application, scroll through it by hitting next page, or going to the main menu and clicking on the links. You can do any of that. But remember, we do want you to do that charity profile step before you do your CFC application, because that is going to populate question 7 or certification 7 about your administrative and fundraising rate. So we do want you to make sure that some of those are done in order. But once you come in and you start the application, it will save for you whether you hit next or main menu. It's going to save. You can come back and change it. It will not lock you out until you hit submit for review. So you can take the entire 30 days, do this step, come back and do this step, change this step. But until you hit the button submit for review, you have access to your saved work at any time. There is a question that says, are applications open yet to start working on? The application will be open as of 9/1 for you to begin working. So you could go in, get started looking at that after September 1st. So there was a question again on the 990. If your fiscal year is July 1, 2013 to June 30th, 2014, yes, that is acceptable because it ends with June 2014. Can the login for the application be changed from last year? Absolutely. Just send us an email at Member Connection and we're happy to do that. The link is not posted on the site yet because we're going to open it on September 1. We have a couple more tweaks that we want to get done in the next couple of days. So you cannot actually, we have not actually posted it anywhere yet. Let's see. We're getting towards the end of our questions and actually our time. It's been really helpful for me to even hear from you guys. This is great. All right, it looks like some of the last questions that we have really are very specific to your organization. So definitely we'll get you connected. We'll comb through all of these. Our system will give us an output of all of these questions, and we'll get you connected to your manager to answer any of the questions as far as you know, your addresses or how you work with your national, all of those kind of things. So it doesn't look like we're having any more. Thank you all for your time. Again, even your questions and your feedback is super helpful for us. We are working in an agile state of mind. So if you have, you know, things that you'd like to see, you know, tweaked or done differently, please send those to us. We are happy to take them into consideration and see how we can improve our systems for the greater good of all of the organizations that, you know, we represent. So again, you can look for today's slides posted on the member resource page and then today, and then we'll work on getting today's recording posted up there as well. So again, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for, you know, all you do for those in, you know, that you serve through your mission. I know many of us count on what you do, and we just want to make sure that we can support you so that you have time to focus on that. So again, thank you, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.